Hi there, Magdalena here from the Creative Photography School, and this is video number 2 of the 6-part mini video series. And last video we talked about exposure, just quickly touched upon it, but it's basically the amount of light that hits your sensor in your camera. And there are 3 components that control exposure, and one of them is aperture, and that is what we will talk about today. So in very simple terms, aperture is the hole size in your lens that controls how much light will come through and hit your sensor. And you can adjust that hole size. So similar to the pupil in your eye, it adjusts itself, but you have the control in the camera to adjust it. And obviously the larger the hole size, the more light comes in. The smaller the hole size, the less light comes in. And the hole, or the aperture, we shouldn't say hole all the time, but the aperture is measured in stops, and they are called f-stops. And here it is where it gets a bit tricky. A small f-stop number, so for example a f2.8, equals a large hole size, so a large aperture. Whereas a large f-stop number, for example an f16, equals a small hole size, so a small aperture. So it sounds a bit counterintuitive, and it is. But if you put this to memory, you will get there. However, in addition to the amount of light that aperture controls that comes into your camera and hits the sensor, there's also a creative control. And the creative control is the depth of field. The depth of field, I have another whole video just dedicated about depth of field, so you can watch that later. But just in very basic and simple terms, depth of field is the sharpness range. So basically whatever is in front or behind your subject that is in focus, or that you're focusing on, and whatever the sharpness, how large the sharpness, the range goes from that focus point, that is your depth of field. So obviously, you know, the less sharpness you have, the shallower the depth of field, and the more range of sharpness you have, the deeper depth of field you have. And that is also controlled by aperture. So basically, just to put it more into perspective, the large aperture equals a small f-stop number, and that is a shallow depth of field. So good for portraits, for example, because you have the blur in the background. And then you have the small aperture, which is a large f-stop number, and that is a deeper depth of field. So that's really good in landscapes, for example. So that helps you a little bit. It will take a little bit of time to put that into memory, but once you have there, you can play around with it and have fun with it. But that is basically it. So again, aperture, just to summarize, aperture controls the amount of light coming through. So the size, you can adjust the hole size, and it also has the creative control of the depth of field. So there you have it. That's aperture. In the next video, we will talk about shutter speed, and shutter speed also controls the amount of light coming through, but in a different way, and it also has a creative effect or control, but also a different one. Stay tuned for that one. Thank you for watching. Make sure you sign up for our newsletter or our Facebook group, because in the Facebook group we want to try to build a community, help each other. If you have questions, please post them there or get in contact with us. Share your images along the way. We would love to hear from you and to see some, how you try things. But definitely make sure you watch the next video. So stay tuned.